It's hot, it's crowded, and you're stuck in traffic. Ah, yes, the joys of living in a big city. But you're not the first to experience this. Ancient Rome was notorious for its gridlock and noise, much like today. And it wasn't until Augustus Caesar came along that the concept of rush hour was invented. So let's take a look at what rules the emperor put in place to try and get those pesky chariots off the streets. Emperor Augustus was inaugurated in 27 BC after a long stint as the first citizen of Rome alongside his great-uncle Julius Caesar. The capital was booming with new construction projects, aqueducts and public works. But there was a downside. Along with an influx of new citizens, Rome's infrastructure couldn't keep up with all the new folks moving into the city. It was so bad that Emperor Augustus decided to commission a census to see just how many people he was actually in charge of. He found out he had about 1 million subjects to manage, including around 300,000 slaves and 30,000 chariots crowding the streets. The sheer number of chariots in the city became a problem. Chariots were the main mode of transportation in Rome, and were used for everything from riding to the forum to bringing goods to market. There were no streetcars, subways, or buses to take the crowds off the streets, so the only way to get around was by foot or chariot. But chariots weren't like cars. They were large, open vehicles drawn by 2 or more horses that were driven by a charioteer. These chariots were noisy, smelly, and dangerous. They belched out smoke, making the air thick with coal dust, and the drivers often competed with one another by whipping their horses into a frenzy. Pedestrians had no refuge from the speeding chariots, since buildings didn't have sidewalks. People were forced to dodge traffic obstacles while trying to complete their daily activities. And if you were hit by a chariot, you probably wouldn't live to tell the tale. So Augustus decided to implement some of the earliest known traffic laws to try and get those chariots off the road. In 7 BC, he prohibited anyone from driving a chariot within the city limits unless they had a special permit. But why would a law like that even matter? As we said, chariots were essential for daily life. Without a car, bus or subway to take you to work, everyone had to get to the shops or the forum by foot or chariot. And who could afford to pay for a chariot and a full-time charioteer to drive them to and fro? Only the wealthy elite. That meant that the working class, shopkeepers and merchants, the people who had to be out on the streets all day, every day, had no choice but to walk. The result? The streets were always packed with pedestrians. Emperor Augustus tried to alleviate this problem by creating the world's first rush hour. He decreed that from 4 to 5 p.m., when everyone was leaving work, only pedestrians would be allowed in the city center. No chariots. This might sound familiar. Many cities around the world still use restricted traffic times to help with gridlock and pollution, but Rome wasn't thinking about pollution. Emperor Augustus was worried about noise. Chariots were loud, and the emperor wanted peace and quiet during the day. According to the historian Pliny the Younger, the ban on chariots was part of an effort to restore quiet to the city. You can't be quiet when you're surrounded by the clatter of chariots and the braying of drivers competing with each other. Of course, that didn't stop people from talking loudly to compensate for the din. But the ban did help clear the streets. Shopkeepers were forced to close up shop early, and pedestrians were also kept out of the city centre. While it may have been an improvement over the total bedlam that preceded it, it wasn't a perfect solution. People needed to get home, and the restricted hours didn't accommodate that. Plus, enforcing the ban was difficult and dangerous. Charioteers didn't take kindly to being told what to do, and sometimes violence erupted between charioteers and the police force, the vigiles, who were tasked with enforcing Augustus's new traffic laws. Emperor Nero expanded the restricted hours later, pushing the curfew back to 8 p.m. But the common folk hated the restrictions since it cut into their time in the evenings. Eventually, the rush hour ban was lifted, though it was reimposed in the Middle Ages and then again in the 19th century to help with the pollution and gridlock. So next time you're stuck in traffic, just remember it could have been much worse. You could be in ancient Rome during the reign of Augustus Caesar. Hey there, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Shadows of History, be sure to check out our other videos. We've got plenty of ways that you can help us keep the historical content coming your way. You can support the channel through various platforms. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.